that we are at or close to a quorum, but I'd like to open this meeting with a moment of silence for the horrific massacre that occurred this week in Texas of 19 school children and 2 adults. So if we can just take a moment of silence for the next minute, I would appreciate it. Thank you. And I think we all feel extremely deeply for the loss that these families have experienced. This is obviously not the first time and no doubt won't be the last time. Nellie, if you could do a roll call, that'd be great.
State your jurisdiction, if you'll please state your name. San Mateo County.
Carolyn Blady for Supervisor Pine.
Thank you. San Mateo County. Atherton.
Rick DeGolia.
Belmont. Brisbane.
Colleen Mackin.
Burlingame.
Anna Coulson.
Colma.
Ray Gonzalez.
Thank you. Daly City.
Dr. Radas Magbual.
East Palo Alto. Foster City. Half Moon Bay.
RV Rarback.
Hillsborough.
Larry May.
Los Banos. Menlo Park.
Betsy Nash.
Millbrae.
Andrews Funk.
Pacifica.
Tiger Jazz Big Stick.
Portola Valley. Redwood City. San Bruno.
Zell Hill.
Thank you. San Bruno. San Carlos.
Laura Palmer Lohan.
San Mateo.
Rick Bonilla.
South San Francisco.
James Coleman.
Woodside. Director Emeritus. And Director Emeritus.
John Keener.
Thank you, and we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. If there's any public comment, you can make that comment by clicking on the reactions button on the bottom of your screen and raising your hand. I don't see any public comment at the moment. Okay, if we could.
We do have a public comment.
Okay, thank you, Nellie. Go ahead.
Members, hi, my name is Alan Bedwell, and I'm a member of the Friends of Bedwell Bayfront Park, a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to protecting the beautiful 160-acre open space park at the edge of San Francisco Bay in Menlo Park. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about a potential solar project at the park. Since its creation, the park has been an open space preserve, a wildlife habitat right next to Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge, and a natural island of beauty and peace in the midst of the massive development that we're all seeing in Silicon Valley. It's a park that's filled with meadows, rolling hills, bird life, people, and incredible vistas. The reason I speak with you tonight is the Friends of Bedwell Bayfront Park were recently approached by a member of your Citizens Advisory Board about a potential installation of a large solar panel array at the park. And while the Friends of Bedwell Bayfront Park are ardent supporters of renewable energy to combat climate change, and I personally have spent most of my career promoting clean energy and fighting climate change in a variety of roles, I'm here tonight to share the Friends' adamant opposition to building a large solar array that would damage the park's natural environment. wildlife habitat and conflict with the park's 35-year designation of open space and passive recreation. Instead, the Friends fully support using commercial and local government rooftops with much more cumulative acreage than the park to generate renewable energy. The Friends of Bedwell Bayfront Park, the organization I'm representing tonight, urged the PCE to find less environmentally damaging sites for renewable energy and not to damage this environmental jewel on the edge of San Francisco Bay. I don't want to be all doom and gloom tonight. And in fact, the good news is that I've discussed our concerns with your advisory board member in a very thoughtful and constructive way. And the Friends, as an advocacy group, will work with and support PCE on citing local renewable energy generation that combats climate change without sacrificing our increasingly rare open space reserves. I'll follow up with written comments, and I thank you for helping preserve open spaces and also, very importantly, championing clean energy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Is there any other public comment? I don't see any. If you see any, let me know, Nellie. In the absence of public comment, we will move on. Can I get an action to set the agenda and approve the consent items?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Rick and Harvey. And just before we act on that, let me make sure that there's no one that wishes to remove a consent item or make a comment on a consent item. Okay, I don't see any one raising their hand. Could we please do a roll call?
San Mateo County,
Here.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont, Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma,
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City, Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley, Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno, San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Mute. The next item on the agenda is the chair report, and I don't have a report for tonight. So we will move on to the CEO report.
Thank you. Great to see everybody here tonight. I'll do a short report because we have a very full board meeting tonight. Next slide, please. Just wanted to let you know that we are hiring. We have 4 positions currently open. The CFO, EV Associate Programs Manager, that's Electric Vehicle Associate Programs Manager, Power Resources Manager, and a Renewable Energy Analyst. And if you know of anyone who might be a great candidate for any of these positions, please refer them to our website to submit an application. Next slide, please. Just some of the things going on. Wanted to let you know that I'm continuing to spread the word about our 24/7 work and made a presentation at the World Resources Institute webinar a couple of weeks ago. And then also we are meeting, as we told you, with all of the CEC and CPUC commissioners. And this last month we met with California Energy Commissioner Chair David Hochschild, and thank you, Rick DeGolia, for attending that meeting with us. And then we had a follow-up meeting on Monday with CPUC Commissioner Cliff Reckstoff, and he was interested in getting more details about our transportation and building electrification programs. Next slide, please. Things are still busy in the legislature. And so these AB 1944, which is the bill, I believe, about continuing to have hybrid meetings, is moving forward. SB 881, which is an energy-related bill that CalCCA was not able to get consensus on to support, is actually stalled and will not move forward this year. SB 887, which is one of Josh Becker's bill, is moving to the Assembly. SB 1020, moving to the State Senate. And the next slide, please. SB 1112, another bill by Josh Becker, will pass the Senate earlier this week, and then it will go on to the House or the Assembly. SB 1158, which is the 24/7 bill that we've been working very closely with Senator Becker on, is, let's see, passed off the floor of the full Senate. So it'll be going to the Assembly. SB 1203, another Josh Becker bill, also passed the Senate this week. And SB 1393 will be considered by the full Senate in a few weeks. Any questions on any of those bills? Okay, next slide, please. And then just an update on our upcoming meetings, the Citizens Advisory Committee, Audit and Finance, Executive, and Board of Directors. So I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you might have. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that the end of your report, Jan?
It is the end of my report. You'll hear from me later on another item. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the next item on the agenda is the Citizens Advisory Committee report. Is Morgan going to give that?
Morgan is not. Cheryl is giving it tonight.
Okay, Cheryl, great.
Chair DeGolia and honorable members of the board. Our last CAC meeting was held Thursday, May 12th. Shana Barnes gave a brief history of how and when the DEAI board subcommittee was formed, especially for those not on the CAC at that time. Then we heard detailed preliminary DEAI survey results by Ed Salcido of GCAP Services and Mara Rosales of Rosales Business Partners. Jan Pepper shared a draft budget for the next fiscal year, and Vanessa Shin updated us on marketing's upcoming e-bike discount offer and June 2nd virtual all-electric homes tour. Vanessa asked us to help promote both programs with a toolkit that she would email. The committee was careful to make slight edits to a resolution honoring the members of the Citizens Advisory Committee to fully reflect the valuable contributions of members who have recently left or would leave the CAC after that meeting. Then they shared specific verbal recognition of members' achievements and warm personal thanks for the privilege of working alongside them. We can't wait to welcome several new CAC members at our June meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the board? And is there any public comment on this? Okay, I don't see any public comment or questions. So let's move on to the next item, which is item 8, recognition of Peninsula Clean Energy's 5th anniversary of service to San Mateo County.
Okay, thank you. I would like to take this opportunity on the 5th anniversary of the first delivery of Peninsula Clean Energy Service to all of San Mateo County to recognize and thank everyone whose vision and hard work has contributed to our founding, our success, and our growth. To our board of directors, those of you serving now, those of you who served in the past, you have provided us with support and energy that has propelled us forward, led us and inspired us from day one, even before day one, when you were part of forming Peninsula Clean Energy and instituting policies that have made us a leader among the CCA community. Like to thank our awesome staff who have been very committed and all really committed to the mission that we have going forward, which makes it so much fun and such a pleasure to be working together when we're all kind of rowing in the same direction because we all believe in what we're all trying to do. So thank you for your dedication. And we have accomplished a lot because of your high quality work and commitment to our mission. And to everyone who calls San Mateo County home, thank you for your confidence in Peninsula Clean Energy. We strive to earn your confidence and support every day by providing you with clean energy at lower rates. Today, we're building a better, brighter, healthier future for our community and for our planet. And before I invite comments from members of the Board of Directors, we have two representatives from the officers of our local legislators who have asked to share a few words. And I believe we have Kevin Fong from the Office of State Assembly Member Kevin Mullen and Helen Wolter from the Office of State Senator Josh Becker. And I don't know if I'm missing anyone else, but Kevin, if I might ask you to share some words with us.
Sure, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me this evening. Pleasure being here with you all on behalf of Assembly Member Kevin Mullen, as we recognize and honor Peninsula Clean Energy's 5th anniversary. Hard to believe it's been 5 years. Time really does kind of go by. In Peninsula Clean Energy's 5 years, they've been a tremendous leader in the clean energy transition, whether that's been providing clean, renewable energy to San Mateo County residents, helping local cities with REACH codes, or supporting the transition to electric vehicles. Peninsula Clean Energy has been at the forefront of all this work. Assemblymember Mullen's been a proud supporter of Peninsula Clean Energy and the work they do, and he is also proud to be co-author to SB 612 and AB 1814, which will support the good work CCAs like Peninsula Clean Energy are doing. With that being said, on behalf of Assemblymember Mullen, I would like to extend a sincere thank you, congratulations on celebrating 5 years, and best wishes for continued success in the years to come. Looking forward to continuing our partnership and working together.
Thank you, Kevin. And Helen, if you're available.
I am, and I'm sorry if you can hear my child playing video games in the background.
That's okay.
So first, I am so excited to be here. I'm honored to be here tonight to share a few words on behalf of Senator Becker. We will have a resolution signed by Assemblyman Mullen and Senator Becker that we will get to you. So, as you know, both members are busy working on our behalf. Tomorrow is the final day for bills that were introduced at the beginning of the session to be passed from the House of Orange and onto the other side of the legislator, excuse me. So I am here. I extend a great big thank you to PCE for everything your team has done for the past 5 years to address climate change. Your shared visions and efforts to accomplish that plan have brought clean energy and a healthy environment to San Mateo County and beyond. We would like to make a special note of the leadership PCE has demonstrated in its endeavors to meet the state's goal of creating clean energy. Not just while the sun, not just while the sun is shining, but 24/7. We are trying to get off of fossil fuels. Senator Becker read the PCE white paper on pursuing 24/7 and renewable power. And with that white paper, he introduced SB 1158, which is intended to help set annual greenhouse gas emissions targets for each electricity supplier. SB 1158's reporting requirements for electricity suppliers will help ensure that we are on track to achieve 100% clean energy goals. And that's thanks to you guys. 24/7 renewable energy approach will match renewable energy supply with demand on an hour-by-hour basis. And it is critically important to the success of our state in addressing climate change. And that's thanks to PCE. SB 1158 was voted on just yesterday by the full Senate. And we are very pleased to report it passed with flying colors. It was, almost, I think 30 votes that it passed out of 40 senators. So it is now in the assembly and will be voted on that side of the, on the policy committees and such in the coming weeks. And they'll start all over, but it's got a great track record so far, and that is thanks to your leadership. Thank you, PCE, for your ongoing work on 24/7. There remains much work ahead now that SB 1158 will move to the assembly side of the legislature, but we look forward to working with you as the bill moves forward. And we anticipate working with you on your efforts to create 24/7 energy. In closing, PCE, you have set the standard for clean energy today. You are leading on how to create a more sustainable and resilient future. On behalf of Senator Becker, congratulations on your first 5 years. We are eager and excited to see what the next 5 years from Peninsula Clean Energy brings. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And we really appreciate the support we've had from the entire legislative delegation that represents San Mateo County, and especially from Senator Becker and Assemblymember Mullen. You've been there and helped fight the good fights for CCAs. So we really, really appreciate your support and look forward to working with you in the future. I'll turn it back to you, Rick, for any comments from board members.
Okay. Anyone on the board have a comment or question? I'll just say that 5 years is a really significant milestone, and we should all be proud that we're here, that we've maintained this very significant discount to our customers, and that we pushed the issue of clean energy forward, both strategically with other LSCs and in the market in general. I think it's really a very significant accomplishment. So thank you to all of the staff for the very hard work that you've done, and for the board for all of the support that's been provided. And I have a comment from Rick Bonilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I feel really, this is a very touching moment for me. 5 years for this great organization that is doing really such great things. Some of the most important work that we can do as a people right now to reduce pollution, to provide clean, renewable energy that's going to displace methane, that's going to make so many more things possible, safer if we do everything right with building new infrastructure and rebuilding our transmission and distribution systems and undergrounding, working with the other entities, the IOUs, the CPUC, the legislature, to get everything, all the ducks in a row. And we're doing it. It's happening. It's going incrementally like everything does, but it's getting there. And I really applaud the fact that we here at PCE, under Jan's guidance, and I was there when we interviewed and decided to hire Jan. And I think Jan overall is doing a really great job. We're getting to where we took this stance that we would take the lead and make this accomplishment so early compared to all of the other entities that are trying to do this. We're showing the way. And so I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of our board, very proud of our legislators. I think we've pulled together a great team, and I'm proud to be part of it. So thank all of you.
Okay, thank you, Rick. I don't see any other comments. If anyone has a comment, you can click on the reactions and raise your hand. Okay, not seeing other comments. Let's move on. The next.
Wait. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. I just having interviewed Jan as well, having been here from even before the official launch. I really just have to thank all of the people who have contributed to PCE over the past. It's almost coming up on 7 years we've been at this. 5 years of being running an actual supply, but 7 years of organizing. And starting when we were back in the Office of Sustainability, and there were 4 people working there. Kristen back in the day, Carolyn, Sean was doing a lot of work with us back to launch at that time. All the people that served on this board, all the people that have come and gone from staff, although many of them are still here. It's just, I tell people routinely that my tiny contribution to this organization is by far the most significant contribution I've made to a better world for my children. So again, thank you everyone for everything you've done.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if there's nobody else, I'd like to make one other comment too.
Go ahead.
I want to offer special thanks for Dave Pine, the county supervisor, who really saw the vision, who really reached for the possibility that we could do this. In 2014, when I met all the people at Marin Clean Energy and brought them down to talk with Dave Pine about we need to do this in this county, that was 7 years ago. Dave Pine was the county, I was just a planning commissioner in the city of San Mateo. Dave Pine was the county supervisor that said, yes, we can do this, and really put the oomph behind it. He brought the county's full faith and their pocketbook behind the efforts and made it happen so that we were able to be who we are today. So thank you to Dave Pine especially.
Great. Very well deserved. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. So the next 3 items on the agenda deal with our extremely important and valuable and contributory Citizens Advisory Committee. And the first item is item 9, which is approval of a resolution to honor members of the CAC. Is that being introduced by Kirsten?
Yes, good evening.
Okay, hi.
Hi. Next slide, please. So it's appropriate tonight when we're honoring the 5-year anniversary of Peninsula Clean Energy to also honor the community members who helped launch the organization and have helped support the organization all along. And we've had some long-standing members of our Citizens Advisory Committee who have termed off the committee this month and chose not to seek another term, and also some committee members who have had to step off in the last year, often due to moving out of the area, sometimes due to moving out of the country for conflicts with work. But because we have such a large and significant turnover, it's really a great time to honor these members and just realize what important contributions they make. So in the resolution in your agenda packet, I've outlined some of the main high-level bullet points of some of the contributions of some of these members, such as Tim Busiek, who advocated for PCE to set the decarbonization goal of decarbonizing San Mateo County by 2035. He really advocated strongly for that. Morgan Shakanova, our current chair, who drafted our Citizens Advisory Committee's original work plan and has really helped organize the committee to be more effective, and has served as chair and vice chair. And speaking of advocates who helped the organization launch, Janet Creech was there at the very beginning, before the very beginning, spearheading a grassroots group called San Mateo Community Choice that helped bring all the cities on board and prove there was grassroots support for this. And Janet was a real quiet leader in that movement to launch PCE, but very important. And then on our Citizens Advisory Committee, she's volunteered significant hours on our efforts to create programs to support schools and to actually write some of our curriculum used in schools herself. Next slide, please. Terry Gibbons is actual national expert in diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and she drafted the CAC's equity statement in 2020. So we're really lucky to have her expertise. Ray Larios is a outreach expert who formerly worked for the county and community outreach, who helped us expand our reach to the Latinx community and helped us volunteer at bilingual events throughout the county and served as the chair last year. And Alex Melendres has really helped also expand PC's reach to San Mateo County's young Latinx community, and has especially helped promote our program offerings through his widespread reach on personal social media, and helped us connect with the affordable housing community. So I am so grateful to these community volunteers who have spent their time helping our organization launch and grow and be effective.
Okay, is that the end of that report?
It is, and you have a resolution before you to approve some language honoring these members.
Okay, great. Can I get a motion to approve that resolution?
So move, Alfs.
Okay, motion by Jeff and second by Rick Bonilla. Could we please have a roll call?
There may be, is there public comment on this item?
Oh, okay, maybe I didn't take public comment. If there is public comment, now's the time to provide it. I don't see any public comment.
Mr. Chair, if I could say a few words.
Go ahead.
I just, having been working with the CAC over the past few years, I just want to say thank you to this group of tremendous. We have been attracting really great people to work with this committee, and it can be hard work, it can be a little frustrating at times, but they have stuck with it, and they have contributed. They've evangelized PCE to the county and beyond. They have brought us great ideas. They've done legwork for us. They've come up with things for us. They really helped push us forward on DEAI. They've done tremendous work, all of them, and I just want to thank all of the departing volunteers and assure you that we've actually recruited a really great group of replacements, not replacements, but new members, because we cannot replace them. But the CAC has done great work, and it will continue to do so. So thank you to all of the departing members, and good luck.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Is there any other comment on this item? Okay, I don't see any. We have a motion. If we could do the roll call, that would be great.
Thank you. San Mateo County?
Yes.
San Mateo County?
Oops. Yes.
Thank you. Atherton?
Yes.
Belmont? Brisbane?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Colma?
Yes.
Daly City?
Yes.
East Palo Alto? Foster City?
Yes.
Half Moon Bay?
Yes.
Hillsborough?
Yes.
Los Banos? Menlo Park?
Yes.
Millbrae?
Yes.
Pacifica?
Yes.
Portola Valley?
Yes.
Redwood City?
Yes.
San Bruno?
Yeah.
San Carlos?
Yes.
San Mateo?
Yes.
South San Francisco?
Yes.
And Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Whoops, maybe I was on mute. I was muted there. So the next item on the agenda is number 9, which is approval of the new Citizens Advisory Committee members.
I believe Donna is going to be presenting this.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we had a wonderful group of applicants for our several openings with our Citizens Advisory Committee. And before I start on them, I want to first recognize the hard work of our 2 staff people, Vanessa Shin and Kirsten Anders Schwinn, who coordinated the entire effort of interviewing over 15 people and determining the existing members that might stay. Just a lot of groundwork and footwork. So really, really thanking them for their excellent coordination on behalf of the board of directors. And then I want to thank Jeff Alfs, Marty Medina, and Rick Benia, who, along with me and the staff, worked on this. And I will say they actually did probably the yeoman's amount of work. We were able to, just to remind everybody a little bit, we have a Citizens Advisory Committee that can consist between 11 and 15 members. We've been very fortunate to always have been able to appoint 15 members. When we appoint people, we look for a variety of skills. We look for people to be representative of all age groups, of all of the diversity within our county, as well as within the geographic parameters. So as we're picking people, sometimes people who may get picked or not picked, it's really just to make sure that we have a holistic and well-rounded group of individuals. So we had a total of 8 openings on the CAC. 4 of our CAC members had terms expiring, and fortunately for us, 2 excellent candidates requested a reappointment for another term, and that was Jason Mendelson and Stephen Booker. So those 2 were granted those terms. That gave us a residual 6 openings left to fill, and then 4 additional vacancies from members who stepped off in the past year. So I believe we had total of 6 appointments that we were going to make. Next slide. Interviews were conducted over the course of, I believe 3 meetings. We received 12 completed applications. We interviewed all of the candidates were interviewed by the board subcommittee in April. And as I mentioned, everyone was incredibly qualified. And then we will be recommending the following applicants for appointment: Brandon Chan of South San Francisco, Kathleen Goforth of San Carlos, Michael Garvey of San Carlos, Margaret Lee of South San Francisco, Ed Love of Half Moon Bay, and Brian Tran of South San Francisco. All of these candidates were performed very well on their presentations. Their longstanding communication and qualification and relationship with our CAC. In the past, for example, Margaret Lee of South San Francisco had been on many occasions an advocate at some of our booths. So we feel like this is an excellent representation. We already have a very strong number of members that are from the South Bay portion of the south portion of our county. So we really wanted to work on the coast side as well as Mid and North County, and we believe that this group of candidates will represent and add diversity in many perspectives and ways to the CAC, and we should be able to continue relying on them as we do now for the excellent work that they have provided. So with that, I believe, Kirsten, would you like to add anything, or Vanessa?
You covered it, Donna.
Okay, and any of my colleagues on the committee have anything to add? Okay. With that, then I'll turn it back to you, Chair DeGolia, for our next steps.
Okay, are there any questions from members of the board? I don't see.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I don't have a question. I just want to say, though, it was a great experience. Bright, eager people willing to join and serve. It was really uplifting. I welcome these people to an open heart. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the board, including the subcommittee?
I see Giselle Hale has her hand raised.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you to the committee. Yeah, a quick question is just, it's a tremendous amount of turnover. So what sort of onboarding is being provided and to create the continuity between the last CAC and the new CAC so that there's no lost sort of work stream and effort and focus? Did the committee think through that, or is staff already thinking about that?
Sure, we're already thinking about that. At our upcoming Citizen Advisory Committee, we will be doing an onboarding through introductions, a Brown Act training, a introduction to our programs from Raphael, and then we'll be going over the work plan, which is your next agenda item. inviting our new CAC members to join working groups. And then if the CAC members who are new would like a more additional onboarding and training, we're happy to offer that as well. Does that answer your question?
And I will mention also that several of them were known to committee members and staff and had participated and worked with us in the past in a non-CAC but volunteer capacity. I see Jeff Alfs also has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. At the risk of repeating myself, we continue to get good candidates who show interest in working with us, and this group is no exception. So I welcome them aboard, or I encourage you to improve them and welcome them aboard, and look forward to seeing what they do.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised, and I'll just mention that for the new members, to the extent that you haven't totally focused on how the CAC has historically contributed to PCE, it's been extremely meaningful and really very serious engagement and leadership around various issues, not the least of which is DEAI, where we really got great contributions from the CAC. So thank you for committing time to join us, and you should know that you have an opportunity to have influence over the board, and we look forward to your suggestions.
Rick, may I also add, I am remiss in not mentioning Nellie Wagberg for her also many hours of coordinating all of these meetings and helping us set up all the Zoom calls and everything. She did a wonderful job.
Great. Okay, thank you. I would like to get a motion to approve the new Citizens Advisory Committee members.
So moved.
Okay, motion from Marty.
Second,
And is that Colleen?
yes.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. Could we please have a roll call?
Could I just get clarification on who made the motion?
The motion was made by Marty Medina and seconded by Colleen.
Thank you. All right. San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont, Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Homa.
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco. I believe that was yes. South San Francisco.
Yes.
Thank you. And Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nellie. And the third CAC-related item is item number 11, which addresses the proposed 2022 work plan and deliverables for the CAC.
Great, thank you, Chair. Next slide, please. The last couple of years, the Citizens Advisory Committee has worked with staff and the Executive Committee and the Chair to set a specific work plan that is brought to you, the board, to for approval, to make sure everybody is in alignment with what the CAC will be doing to serve the organization. In your consent agenda packet, there were the deliverables from last year's work plan. And we are coming to you tonight with a proposed work plan for the coming year. Just as a quick reminder on the CAC's roles and responsibilities, The roles are to act as a liaison to the community, provide feedback on PCE policy and operational objectives, to engage in outreach to the community, to assist with legislative advocacy with staff and board, and to provide an initial forum for community discussions on a wide variety of strategies to reduce carbon emissions. And we also had a proposal of a new role and responsibility from the executive committee, which is to support PCE in strategic initiatives, such as the Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Project. Next slide, please. Now, the work planning process is an iterative process of conversation between the CAC members, staff. I poll the staff to see what projects they might want to work with CAC members on. CAC members bring up proposals as well. But the basic guidelines that guide this is to make sure that we're utilizing the CAC's talents and interests. We're using staff time wisely, and making sure that we're all aligned in our efforts to drive PCE strategic priorities. Next slide, please. So we have a number of proposed projects that the CAC would like to work on this year. And generally how we do this is they form temporary ad hoc working groups that will work specifically with a staff member on this project. So the first proposed project is to work on the home upgrade program. So this is our income qualified program that provides minor home upgrades and electrification services for residents of our service territory. The task here is to review data and results from the initial rollout of the program and to provide input for a second phase as needed. The next proposed project is building electrification education. There's quite a need for ongoing education about the benefits of building electrification and REACH codes, and our Citizens Advisory Committee can be very helpful in their community liaison role on that project. Next slide, please. In terms of our distributed energy resources strategies, we'd like to ask the CAC for input on our framework, and especially how we can align our distributed energy resources strategies with accomplishing our 24/7 grid decarbonization goals. We'd like to continue to tap the expertise of our CAC members on our educational initiatives, expanding clean energy curriculum and decarbonization projects and schools. And last slide, please. And finally, our Citizens Advisory Committee suggested they reach out to their peers at other Citizen Advisory Committees at other CCAs or similar agencies and municipalities, and see what they're doing and see if there are ways in which we can improve the functioning of our own committee and how it works with staff and the board. And you have before you the resolution to approve this work plan.
Okay, are there any questions from members of the board regarding the proposed work plan? I don't see anyone with a, wait, I thought I just saw a hand go up. Donna.
Thank you very much. I just want to compliment the CAC for thinking about the reaching out to the other CACs and doing work in that area. I think that's really going to be critical, and I think they'll really enjoy it. My experience working with the other ones is they've been fabulous innovative people. So congratulations on adding that, and I really support that effort.
Okay, thanks, Donna. I don't see any other questions, so let me see if there's any public comment on this issue.
Board member Rarbeck had his hand up, Rick, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Harvey.
Briefly.
I didn't see your hand.
Here it is.
Okay, great, got it.
It was an analog hand.
Got it, that works.
I just want to emphasize that the program to educate people about REACH codes is really important. Based on my experience in Half Moon Bay, there's a tremendous need for education, And I highly support that effort that the CAC will be doing. So that's my comment.
Chair DeGolia, you appear to be muted.
Okay, sorry, thanks. So I want to see if there's any public comment on this matter. I don't see any public comment. If there's any other comments from members of the board, that'd be,
Chair DeGolia, we do have a comment.
okay, great. I'm not seeing that. Oh, I see, Desiree.
Yeah, it's Desiree. I just wanted to say, you know, being a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee, but this is a comment on my own behalf, to thank the staff, especially Kirsten and all the board members that have been coming to our meetings to really help us flush out these working groups as the committee evolves, because we found our role has changed over time. But I think I speak on behalf of many of the committee members that are really grateful for everyone who's helped us find a position in this group, and also, you know, as it evolves over time, find new ways that we can really help Peninsula Clean Energy move forward.
Great.
So thanks to the board for all of their support.
Thank you, Desiree. Is there any other comment either from members of the public or members of the board? And I just want to say, well, I'm waiting to see if somebody's raising their hand, that the contribution from the CAC to PCE has really been significant. I know that other CCAs are struggling with how to best manage the relationship with their community advisory committees. And I feel really proud that we've been able to establish such a strong relationship, and we've gotten such valuable feedback. I frankly think that this really started from when we first launched PCE, and we reached out to all of the stakeholders in the county and let them know that they were important to contribute to the formation of PCE, and the CAC has continued that tradition and made genuinely strategic contributions to PCE. So I think this work plan is excellent. I want to reiterate what Donna raised, which is the communication from our CAC to other CCA CACs. That's something that we as board members have tried to do. It is not easy because it isn't enabled very easily, but I really support that. I think that the cross CCA communication and contributions are extremely valuable to building this entire effort throughout California. So I'm proud that our CAC is taking that kind of leadership. I don't see anyone with a hand raised. So if I could please get a motion to approve the proposed work plan.
So moved by May.
Thank you, Lawrence. Is there?
Second, Colson.
Okay, thank you, Donna. If we could do a roll call, that'd be great.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont, Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma,
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nellie. So the next item on the agenda is item 12, which deals with a resolution to approve the PCE Chief Executive Officer to vote on matters before the California Community Power Board.
Thank you, Rick. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yes, so what we're bringing to you today is to approve a resolution delegating authority to me as a board member of the California Community Power Board to be able to vote on items that come before that board. If we can go to the next slide, please. So as you may recall, California Community Power is a JPA of CCAs. There are 10 members of that. And we have so far entered into a contract for a long duration energy storage project along with a number of other CCAs. And the current project that CC Power is working on is to procure up to 200 megawatts of firm clean resources to comply with a regulatory requirement we have to have firm clean resources. And resources that meet this definition are geothermal and biomass. So we issued an RFO, or the CC Power issued an RFO back in October. Offers came in December, and in February, CC Power shortlisted 2 geothermal developers, and negotiations have been underway and 2 PPAs are almost finalized. And so CC Power will be executing projects under similar structure as the Tumbleweed long duration storage project. And let's go to the next slide to show you kind of the timeline that we've been following here. So at the executive committee in May, I provided some background on this process that we're going through at CC Power. And tonight I'm providing the full board with background on this project. Tomorrow we are bringing together the procurement subcommittee to do a deeper dive on the projects and the contracts. And then the CC Power board meeting to vote on participating in these firm clean power projects is going to occur before the PCE board meeting in June. So there are two votes that happen at CC Power. The first vote is to vote as to whether or not CC Power should enter into an agreement with the developer of the project. And then after CC Power votes on that, assuming it's yes, then each of the different CCAs that want to be a part of that project have 120 days to bring it to their respective boards and get their boards to say yay or nay for that CCA's participation in the project. What we did on the long duration storage is we combined those 2 steps. In this case, we would not combine those 2 steps because of the timing. So what will be coming up before our next board meeting is the CC Power vote as to whether or not CC Power should enter into the agreement with the developers. It does not obligate Peninsula Clean Energy to do anything, but once that once that contract has been signed, then we have 120 days for us to bring it back to you, to talk about it, to get into the details and decide whether or not we're going to, we want to be a part of it. Our staff, our power procurement staff is very involved in the procurement oversight committee at CC Power. They're very involved in the negotiations of contracts. I'm in frequent contact with Tim Haynes, the general manager on the projects. So, so we're very involved in it. And if we can go to the next slide. So for the Firm Clean Resources project, we will be the same kind of requirements in terms of workforce, environment, and environmental justice will be followed. So in terms of workforce, we will require the payment of prevailing wages. There's a preference for a project labor agreement. For projects that don't have a project labor agreement, an audit will be required to ensure compliance with prevailing wages. and they will encourage the use of local labor. And if we go to the next slide, in terms of environment, all projects must meet the permitting requirements. And we state a preference, of course, for projects that avoid sensitive habitats. And in terms of environmental justice, we have the developers attest that they're not using products in the supply chain that were produced from forced labor, if it's a solar project, and to identify benefits to local communities. So, so what I'm asking for tonight is your delegation of authority to me to go ahead and be able to vote as a board member of CC Power on a project for the firm Clean Resources that will be coming to them before we have our next board meeting. I might note that all of the other CCAs, all of the CEOs have been delegated that authority. And I assure you that the decision as to whether or not we actually participate in the project, of course, will come to this board. This is just to allow CC Power to keep moving forward to getting these projects together so that we can actually have the option of participating in the projects. So happy to go to the next slide, please, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. So if there are any questions of clarification from members of the board, we'll take those now. Rick. You're muted, Rick. Oh, you're still muted.
I'm here now. So thank you very much, Jan, for the presentation. I just want to try to clarify a couple of things. First, I mean, I'm reading this resolution, and this, just to be clear, if we were to approve this resolution right now to delegate authority, it's not just the project you just mentioned, which is the Clean and Firm Power. It would be going forward as our representative at CCP. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a more general resolution so that if we run into these kinds of scheduling conflicts in the future, that that I have the authority to vote on our organization's behalf.
Right. Thank you. And it's that I want to talk about, that point that you just mentioned about scheduling difficulties, because the reason, I mean, we have a reason, actually, the board voted to ask Jan to come back to us with every single decision that needs to be made there at CCP and get it approved by the board, because at that time, the CCP board had absolutely no policies for labor or the environment. Now, since then, they have done some projects where they have been cooperating with labor and cooperating with environmentalists. However, the board did decide not to have any actual policies that talk about how they do these things, and everything is a one-off discussion for each project. So when this came up for discussion at the executive committee, I asked Jan. Now remember, we're talking about times when there's a short period of time, such as right now, between this this project coming forward and the need to make the initial of the two votes. And so that I can understand. Sometimes there's difficulty there. And in response to that, I asked Jan, could you maybe not vote on this? And if you did, you think it would still pass? And Jan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that it probably would pass.
Yes, I did say that, but
okay.
As a member of the board there, to not be able to vote and to not be able to advocate for our positions, to have the strongest labor and environmental policies, you know, if I'm not voting, then it loses a lot of its
right. I have another point, Jan. I'm not finished. So if I may. So I understand that sometimes there are difficulties here with the short period of time. And if this is the case, I think that Jan, we could give her authority to vote on this initial vote. But it's the second vote where the actual more effective decision is made, which is after a 90-day period after this initial vote. But I just want to make the point that this is a changing of our policy. Our policy was that Jan was going to go to CCP and work to get policies put in place that mirrored or were something close or similar to our own policy, labor policy number 10. That didn't happen. CCP still has no policies like this. Yes, they have done some good things the right way, but there are no guarantees. There's no sureness about that happening at each different given opportunity. Now, I happen to, being aware of this particular project and what it is, I happen to support it. I'm fairly certain it's going to work out really well for us. I think it's an important thing. I understand Jan wanting to have the authority to do this. And I think that if we give Jan the authority to do this, it should be on the first vote only. And so that she can inform us after that happens that, okay, we had this initial vote because there was a short timeline. This was the result of that vote. And based on that result, we either enter the 90-day period before the second vote. But I think that Jan should be required to bring whatever the question is for the second vote to us for our approval before the second vote. And so, because the way I read this, you would be able to just vote on both the first and the second without having approval from the board. And I think the first might be okay, but the second, I think we have plenty of time. There's no reason why you can't bring it to the board. And so those are my thoughts. And I guess that was a couple of questions too. So thank you.
If I could provide some clarification there, the second
go ahead.
vote in terms of whether we would participate or not would always come to the board. When we have any significant power procurement decision, like the next agenda item is for a long-term storage agreement, those always come to the board. So it kind of goes without saying that would occur because we would be committing, significant amount of funds over a long-term contract. So that would happen in any event.
Thank you for saying that, Jen. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just add, Jan, just for clarification, my understanding is that this motion is designed to provide you with the authority to vote in the event that a CC Power vote comes up regarding a project at a time that would require a special meeting of our board to authorize you to vote under the current policy. And that if a item comes up from CC Power that you could bring before our board and within the time frame that it wouldn't be a conflict, that you would absolutely do that. That was the way that it was presented to the executive committee.
Yes.
So
yes,
this
absolutely.
is really designed to enhance Jan's ability to move things forward and fully participate in the discussions at CC Power rather than to be an abstainer during those items that would come up where there's a decision that needs to be made prior to the issue coming before us, whether PCE would participate or not. Okay, let me see. Is there any other question? I don't see any other question from the board. Is there any public comment on this issue? I don't see anyone's hand raised. So I will take comments from members of the board. Jeff.
Thanks. In regard to the questions we've just been discussing, I think we as a board have made it very clear what's important to us, what our values are, and what our priorities are. I think Jan has actually shown a very clear understanding of that. So I am comfortable delegating this authority to her for those situations where she needs it. And I trust her to bring the relevant and sticky questions back to us as circumstances dictate. So I am comfortable with this resolution. I will support it.
Okay, thanks. Rick and then Donna.
Yeah, so I just wanted to verify that, Rick, you just kind of restated what I said. I think we just said it a little bit differently. But as long as that's exactly what the resolution says, which is that she will bring it to us unless there's a short time period, then I'm in support of the resolution. So
Right.
I'm not sure I see where it says that, but yeah.
Okay, Donna.
Thank you very much. Similar to Jeff, I also believe that Jan has demonstrated her ability to interpret and comprehend what the board's direction has been. I think that allowing her the responsibility and the authority to make these decisions in a timely manner benefits the ratepayers, it benefits the organization, and it will allow the organization to operate in a more efficient manner. And as fiduciaries, we have a responsibility to make sure that we are operating properly. And I believe that Jan can do that with this. So I will support this resolution. And I appreciate Jan's position of wanting to be able to act on our behalf.
Okay, great. Thank you, Donna. Rick.
Mr. Chair, so I'm looking at the resolution and I'm not sure that I'm seeing where it says that if there's no time, she's authorized, but if there is time, she'll bring it to us. Where does it actually say that? Is the attorney online here?
He is.
Thank you, David. Could you?
You know, it's in the memo, but it's not in the resolution, as you observe, Mayor Bonilla. But it's a really easy fix. Basically, all we need to do is when someone makes the motion that we add to the resolution. There's actually a small typo too. It says office and not officer, and we can fix that too. But add that when it is not possible to come to the Peninsula Clean Energy Board prior to the meeting of the CC Power Board regarding approval of CC Power agreements with a power supplier due to the timing of the respective board meetings, the CEO has discretion to vote on such matters without prior direction of the PCE board. So if that is the pleasure of the board, it would be very easy to make a motion adding that to the resolution. Obviously, I defer.
Thank you very much, David. With that said, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve this resolution as amended.
Second.
I will.
Okay, I think that's a second from Harvey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Harvey. Is there any comment from any member of the board? I don't see any comments, so if we could do a roll call. Donna.
I just want to say that I just want to say to Jan that I believe the executive committee 100% supports her and the work she does and the way she handles herself and comports herself at all of these outside organizations. The tenor here doesn't seem to feel like that, possibly, but I know that at least me, and I believe most of the people on the committee support you, Jan. And I just want to thank you for bringing this to us and for being as transparent and thoughtful as you have been about making sure this works well for the organization.
Okay, thank you. Laura.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to echo Donna's comments. I serve on the executive committee and I trust Jan to do the right thing by way of the organization. So as meeting our goals and objectives. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I would just say that what we've now got in the resolution, what was exactly what Jan had presented to the executive committee. So this is very consistent with what we had discussed. I don't see anyone else with a hand up. Wait, Jeff.
Yeah, my hand is obscured there in the corner right now. I will just, I'll just second Donna and Laura's comments.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Okay, can we do a roll call?
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont, or sorry, Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma,
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nellie. The next item on the agenda involves a resolution delegating authority to the Chief Executive Officer to execute the Second Amendment to the Power Purchase Agreement with Wright Solar Park for adding batteries and renewable supply.
Thank you. Thank you, Board of Directors. So this is just the recommendation, the same one that was in the memo. But today I'm here to recommend that we execute a power purchase agreement. It's going to be a fully amended and restated PPA for our Wright Solar project to add storage to that site. Go to the next slide, please. Do I have control, Shane? Okay. I think this is very familiar to everyone, but our Wright storage project is located in Merced County, just outside of Los Banos. It's 200 megawatts. We'd like to add a battery to it. It's an 80 megawatt, 4-hour, 320 megawatt hour battery. The solar portion of the project started operating in January 2020. The storage would start operating in December 2023. And it has a interconnection agreement, permitting is complete, and it's expecting to start construction in June of next year, and would be constructed under a 5-party PLA. Hey, Shayna, oh, there you go. So just a little bit of background on this, and I think most people, sorry. A little delay in the slides moving. Here we go. So we executed the initial PPA for Wright in 2017, January. Later that year in September 2017, we executed the first amended and restated PPA when it was acquired. Both of these initial PPAs included the option to negotiate an amendment to add storage. As I mentioned, the solar portion started operating in January 2020, and we've been working hard with the Wright project owners to negotiate a new PPA that would incorporate a storage component. So the contract structure is similar to other contracts that we've executed for solar plus storage. We endeavored not to make any changes to the solar portion of the PPA. We would continue to pay for the output at the same fixed rate per megawatt hour since the project was construction under that. We will pay for the storage portion at a fixed rate, and the units is dollars per kilowatt month. There's no escalation in the storage contract. The contract term will go out 25 years from 2020, So we'll have the storage portion terminate at the same time the solar one does. And we get all of the attributes from the facility. So this includes energy, renewable energy, any ancillary services that are available, and resource adequacy. I think most board members are aware of this, but last year the CPUC passed a decision that requires load serving entities in California to collectively procure 11,500 megawatts of new resources. This requires that contracts be at least 10 years long. And this 11,500 megawatts was allocated to all of the LSEs by load share. And it was allocated also across various resource categories. And adding this storage to Wright will help us to meet this requirement. So we have certain requirements in each year. The requirement is that the facility come online by June 1 of that year. So since Wright's coming online in December 2023, it will help us to meet our 2024 requirement under this decision. These charts are looking at the generation profile and an expected battery discharge. So each chart is a different month of the year, starting with January in the top left and going across through April. The red is the solar portion of the project, and the blue is how we would expect the battery to operate to move some of that solar from the middle of the day when there's too much electricity on the grid into the evenings when we're seeing peaks. And then adding storage will also help us to meet our 2024 goal. So this is showing how Wright will help us to fill in some of the later hours of the day with the storage facility. So again, this is just restating the recommendation from earlier and from the memo. And I think we're making this recommendation because the project has a positive net value to us. It will help us to meet our midterm reliability requirements, and it will help us to meet our 24/7 goal. So please let me know if there's any questions.
All right, are there any questions from members of the board? Harvey.
I'm sure this is a very naive question, but it's something that I've been interested in. Every time there's a storage component, it's set as 4 hours, sometimes 8 hours. Why is there any restriction at all? Why can't the storage last as long as it's needed? Why the discrete end of the storage with the batteries provide?
Yeah, so that we have to put operational characteristics into our contracts to make sure that the project can operate in a way that meets certain regulatory requirements. So 4 hours has been determined by the CPUC as the length for resource adequacy requirements. So the 80 megawatts is how much can be discharged instantaneously at one time. And the 4 hours means if you were to discharge 80 megawatts continuously, you could go for 4 hours before the battery would run out of charge. If you discharge
it's not a technical issue, it's a sort of a regulatory issue. Is that right?
It's both. It's both. So the reason it's 4 hours is for a regulatory reason, but the technical description of that is that's how long the battery could operate at the 80 megawatts before it runs out of the charge, before it becomes an empty battery.
But if you only needed to draw 60 megawatts, for example,
it would run for
last longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Rick Bonilla.
Oh, I think you're muted, Rick.
I'm sorry, I keep doing that. Siobhan, I just want to ask, I think I heard you mention that this is going to be built under a five-craft agreement?
Yeah, what they explained to me is that this would be under the same PLA that the solar was built under.
Oh, that's great. That's great news. I thought this was a good project before, and now I think it's a really good one. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, I don't see any other questions from members of the board. Let me see if there's any public comment on this. If there's any public comment, you can raise your hand by clicking on the reaction button on the bottom of the board. And I don't see any public comment, so I'll bring it back to the board. Are there any comments from members of the board?
Yeah.
Jeff Alves.
Thanks. I'll say what I've said in our subcommittee meetings. This is storage is an incredibly important part of our strategy going forward. This project will actually lower our overall costs and will protect us against volatility in certain situations. It's incredibly valuable. It's also encouraging to me to see the project come forward that hopefully is representative that is both profitable and feasible for the developer, but also will benefit us. Storage is a big part of the statewide goals, and frankly, the worldwide goals of decarbonizing in the next, hopefully 10 to 20 years. And the fact that a project like this can go forward and actually pencil out for everyone is encouraging. And so I'm happy to be approving this project, and I hope that it bodes well for many more projects coming forward in the future.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Is there any other comment from anyone on the board? I don't see any comment. Can I get a motion to approve? This is an action item. So this is a motion to approve the amended and restated power purchase agreement.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
And is there a second?
So second.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think that was
Harvey did it. Harvey did it.
Harvey. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton,
Yes.
Belmont, Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma,
Yes.
Daly City,
Yes.
East Palo Alto, Foster City,
Yes.
Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos, Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
and Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nellie. So the next item on the agenda is a review of the fiscal 22-23 budget. We're not approving it tonight, but this is our initial review of the budget.
Hello, board members. My name is Andy Stern. As Rick said, we're not approving anything, but I want to give you an overview of where we are. The budget review and approval schedule is as follows. On May 9th, we met with the Audit and Finance Committee and reviewed the initial draft in order to get comments and direction. We followed that up right after that with a similar review of the initial draft with the executive committee. That same initial draft that was presented to those committees is being presented to you all this evening, along with what would have been comments, but we didn't get any comments or changes from the initial draft of those two committees. We're reviewing that draft tonight, as I mentioned. On June 13th, we will review a revised draft with the Audit and Finance Committee that will reflect any new updates we have, any changes, any input from any of these committees and from this meeting tonight, along with updated actuals that we'll have through the end of April. By the way, I got a sneak preview of those this afternoon, and it looks like they're running about what we expected. And then at the next board meeting on June 23rd, hopefully we will approve a final budget. By law, we're obligated to approve a budget by June 30th. These are just a list of key assumptions. PG&E generation rates, as you probably know, our rates are tied to PG&E's rates, and PG&E implemented a significant rise in its rates on March 1. We implemented that on April 1 as an average increase of 33% in rates. I'm mentioning also January 1, 2023, we've assumed a decrease in PG&E's rates of 10%. The reason that's important, which is about 7 months from now, the reason that's important is because our fiscal year crosses the PG&E timeline, which is typically targeted as January 1, even though they didn't implement their rate change last year or this past year until March 1. The net change of those two, and I'll show you this in more detail on the next slide. The net change cumulative is a 20% increase as of next January compared to what it was prior to our rate increase. And the way we do rates, San Mateo County rates to its customers and Los Banos rates are the same because they're both tied to the same PG&E rate rates across the same territory. PCIA rates have significantly decreased. Again, as of April 1, we implemented a decrease in the PCIA, or PG&E implemented a decrease in the PCIA of 59% as of March 1, actually. And we've assumed that that's going to bounce up significantly on January 1, 2023, of the 65% increase from the current rate. But the net change is down 32%, or will be down 32% from as of January 1 compared to where we were just a month ago. The Los Banos PCIA rate is higher than San Mateo County's starting on April 1, but they'll be slightly lower on January 1 of next year, and then comparable after that. The net of this makes PCE's rates to its customers up more than 100% through January 1. So in other words, more than double, although customers only pay an additional 33% because of the way the PCIA rate is allocated between PG&E and PCE, but customers pay the same in total. Well, in this case, 33% more they are paying. Our load is forecasted to be 3.2% higher than our FY 22 forecast, but FY 22 only included 3 months of Los Banos, so not surprising that it's somewhat higher. Our cost of energy which is the other really significant and most significant part of our expense budget, is budgeted to increase 18% over FY 2022 forecast, reaching $263 million. Our forecast actually was about $248 million, but we've added $15 million as conservatism. As you may have heard, with a lot of commodity prices, commodities or energy prices have been very volatile. So we've added in some conservatism. And when we get to the numbers, you'll see that we have a good deal of room for that conservatism. But the increase would have been 11% without that conservatism matter, in part because of more Los Banos load, but that's not the most significant portion. I will dive in a little deeper onto the PCIA and PG&E rates, but any questions before I do that? Okay. So this is a chart which is a little bit busy, but in fact, all my charts are busy, but I'll try to walk you through it. The top portion is PG&E generation rate. On January 1, 2021, they were on average 11.2 cents. On April 1 of 2021, they dropped to 10.9 cents. On April 1 of 2022, which was now 2 months ago, or nearly 2 months ago, they increased by 33%. And then you can see going forward what our expectation is. And this is the minus 10% expected on January 1, 2023, which would result in a cumulative increase of 20%. And then slightly plus and minus on the following years. The PCIA rate in the middle on January 1, 2021, which was nearly 18 months ago, that was 3.2 cents. That increased dramatically last year to 4.7 cents, which had the effect of lowering PCE's rate, the PCE portion that customers pay significantly, and resulted in a pretty significant loss this year so far for PCE. But on April 1, we implemented the change as a result of PG&E's change on March 1, which had a reduction of 59%. And even with the expectation of an increase next year from 1.9 cents to 3.2 cents, the cumulative change is 32% down. And that's not expected to change dramatically over the next few years. The effect of that, both of those changes, 33% increase in PG&E's rate to its customers and the 59% reduction in PCIA resulted in 109% or more than doubling of the rate of the revenues that customers pay to PCE. Even with those changes on January 1, 2023, there's a net expectation of a reduction of 22%, but the cumulative amount from where we were just a couple of months ago to where we expect to be on January 1, 2023 is 60% higher, or 63% higher, and not expected to change much in the next few years after that. And I'll just, as a note, mention the Los Banos PCIA that was prior to the change on just recently, a slight reduction in the PCIA, and the expectation is a slight increase, but not the same kind of volatility. And then in the 2024, 25, 26 timeframe, they're expected to be equivalent. So let me pause there before I show you what the effect of this is. Any questions? Okay. This page is also busy, but let me try to walk you through it. The left side, left three columns are the current fiscal year. So the left column there is approved budget. The next column is our current forecast for the fiscal year, and then the variance. So in those three columns, we had a budgeted loss of $18.7 million. Our current expectation is that we will end the year with a better than expected loss of only $6.9 or $6.8 million, so $12.8 million better than what we budgeted. That remains, as I said earlier, remains to be seen. We're not done with the year yet. We don't have financials for May or June yet. As I said, I saw an early iteration of April's financials today, and it looks like our expectations are being met. So I would expect this forecast to be close. It obviously won't be exact because it's a forecast. And then at the bottom of that page, we had a approved budget of 250 days, unrestricted days cash on hand at the end of the year, and we expect to end the year with 243. The columns on the right show the current expectation for 2023, our fiscal year 2023. Our initial budget shows revenues climbing from $239 million in 2022 to $367 million. This is a result of a 109% increase in rates, and an expectation of a change in that position of $75.6 million next year, with even with that $15 million conservatism that we've added in. And that would yield a days cash on hand at the end of fiscal 2023 or June 2023 of 297 days. If you to refresh your memory, our current policy is that our days cash on hand policy is 180 days minimum. I will pause there for any questions, or I can keep going.
This is Larry May, and when we discussed this at the Audit and Finance Committee, we raised the issue of the ending balance. And as you can see, it increases dramatically, which is both good in that it indicates we have good fiscal health, but it also means that we're accumulating cash at a very high rate, maybe to the detriment of ratepayers, or maybe to the detriment of the ratepayers who are most affected by the increase in costs. And that's what we brought up. We had no resolution.
Thanks, Larry. There's also a comment from Laura.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to appreciate Larry's comment. He articulated it better than I can. I'm very concerned about the fact that this is going to be, an issue for many of our customers, and from an equity perspective, that's also concerning. Just in general, inflation, as we all know, is going up with gas prices, and because of that, everything is increasing. Just wanted to put that out there. I don't have any particular ideas or suggestions at this point, but I think this will definitely be something that would be noticeable and would cause our customers some concern. Thank you.
Betsy.
Thank you. Agree with both the previous speakers. And just to add on to that, obviously, as we are asking people to electrify, and that is what we need to do for the climate, this is of great concern. And do we have any comparisons to what people would be paying comparably with gas? And perhaps it's not part of the budget, but it's something that I think we need to address, because people are very concerned about the rising electricity rates, and especially as we're asking them to electrify. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to comment that we should all be very aware that these estimates have enormously fluctuated over the last 18 months because of really how much we are influenced and reactive to PG&E, and their rates have changed, and the PCIA rate has changed. You can see, looking at the current fiscal year numbers, that in fact they're dramatically different from what we expected. We're looking at a budget, and I agree with what everybody else said. That's an enormous amount of cash. We're not a bank, but it's our initial budget. I think that if in fact we end up banking that amount of cash by the end of the year, then there's absolutely action that we need to take. But we need to be very careful, because just look at the change in the estimated revenue in the initial budget for next year from this year. And we just have to this whole area is in such fluctuation, and the estimates are so wildly changing. I feel very concerned about that.
Yeah, I echo that too, about, and I echo all the comments actually. And there was a lot of discussion about accumulating this much cash and what to do about it, and whether that was fair in the current economic environment. And I was nervous to actually show this kind of expectation of positive, because it sets a lot of expectation, and it potentially puts some things in motion that might be a little bit early. And I echo Rick's comment about waiting to see how this plays out. As I mentioned, our approved budget for this year was an $18.7 million loss. Through March, our actuals were a $33 million loss. Because of the change in rates on April 1, we expect that that's going to improve dramatically from $33 million loss to, as you can see here, a $6.8 million loss by the end of the year, just in 3 months. But it would be nice, and I encourage this board to wait till it plays out to see if all this happens or if there are other changes. And I neglected to mention, but it's a good time to mention, PG&E has already announced a rate change that they're going to implement on June 1. It's supposed to be revenue neutral to all of their customers, but their customers they have $15 million customers, or they're used to anyway, and rate neutral to all those customers is not likely to mean rate neutral to PCE customers, because we only have some of the rates and some of the usage. And it's not completely clear how that's going to play out yet, but it looks like it'll be relatively immaterial in total, but there will be some rates that'll go up and some rates that'll go down. But we haven't seen all the details yet to know. And so that's another piece of and who knows how many more rate changes they might do, or how those will affect our rates too. So. Rick, you're on mute.
Sorry, Rick Bonilla.
Thank you. I just want to say that in view of everything that we've just heard, and having viewed the budget and its fluctuations over recent times, I do concur with the thinking about wait and see. We should not make any kind of knee-jerk reactions or decisions at this point, because we're not sure how things are going to shake out in another few months. So thank you, though, for Rick and Andy for saying that, because this is concerning. And I agree with all the comments that I heard and the thinking that I've heard, but I think we need to be a little more conservative and wait and see if this actually materializes. Thank you.
Okay.
Should I go
Andy,
on?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. This is just a picture of revenues in detail. The left side is the current year forecast. You can see that commercial generation revenues are expected to be 112 million, and residential generation revenues are 103 million. Those are the two biggest pieces that comprise our revenue. And then in the initial budget next year, those continue as expected to be the biggest pieces, but you can see that they're expected to increase by 55 to 65% next year. So that contributes to an overall 54% increase in revenues from 239 million up to 368 million. The last page, again, busy, maybe even busier, but I wanted to show all the pieces, and this will be posted online. You can look at it anyway. The column with the red is the same, red arrow is the same, that the initial budget shows $75 million positive change in that position, with an ending days cash on hand of 297, and the forecast for the coming 4 years after 2024 through 2027 show us making between $15 to $24 million. It's interesting to note that the revenues for this coming fiscal year of 368 million are the highest of those years. That it's just an anomaly in the way the PCIA has just completely whipsawed from the high rate that it was last year to a low rate now, and then it's going to go back up again. And it has an unpredictable impact on PCE's revenues. However, if all this plays out the way we have forecasted it, our days cash on hand would be in excess of 300 days, approaching 370 in 5 years. That would, our 180 days is our policy. I think the Audit and Finance Committee made, when they set that policy, also set a directive that if it got below 200 or started approaching 200, which by the way it has as of March when we had our low point, then some actions would have to be considered. But if this plays out, we don't get anywhere near that, and so the board ought to be considering, what kinds of adjustments we might want to make in rates or rebates or whatever. And to the extent that changing rates or changing methodologies in rates and not tying to PG&E or temporarily not tying to PG&E has some obviously political and marketing implications, but that's for another day. Any questions?
Yeah, Donna.
Thank you, Andy. I just want to make a note that, what's really important here when we look at this is this notion that cash on hand is forecast. It's actually cash on hand and reserves. And this is not profit per se. So these reserves can be reinvested in our programs. And Andy mentioned a few that might include rate changes, rebates, more electrification programs, and investment in supporting our community to electrify. So, and that is the beauty of a CCA versus a publicly traded utility, correct? And I was shocked when I looked at these numbers because it shows you why a CCA is so important, and the ability to take those earnings or that cash on hand or that overage and reinvest it into our community is a hallmark differentiating factor between us and a regular investor-owned utility. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as lots of opportunity if we are so fortunate that this works out this way.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Colleen.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Just a question. When I look at that electricity sales for 23, and I start thinking about the high cost of natural gas, if we go into another winter that's very cold, the number of new construction buildings, all electric, the number of commercial conversions that we're promoting to switch over to all electric, reading about way more adoption, booming sales of electric vehicles. I would assume we've incorporated those thoughts into these projections. How accurate do you think we're coming close with regard to all of those fluctuating different criteria?
I'm not responsible for forecasts, and I will let Siobhan comment after I make a brief comments, or Jan. We do our best to try and incorporate at least long-term trends, and the kind of things that you mentioned do have an impact, but they don't change dramatically and don't change quickly in terms of our overall usage. But we do try to incorporate some of the factors and macroeconomic and economic changes and use changes over the course of the next 4 years in terms of our usage expectations. My guess is that we won't be off as far as our rate forecasts will be in the 3 to 4 year time frame, and that those will fluctuate more than have more of an impact on the overall revenues. They may not have an impact on as much impact on individual users who buy an EV or convert a building or do a new construction, but from a PCE standpoint, in total, the rates will have a bigger impact on revenues than the usage changes will in this 5-year time frame.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I don't see anyone's hand up. Let me see if there's any public comment on the budget summary. If anyone has public comment, you can click the raise hand under the reactions button on the bottom of your screen. And I don't see anyone's hand up. I don't see any further comments from members of the board. So we can move on. This was just an informative item. And the next item on the agenda is the PG&E voluntary allocation and market offer renewable energy credit solicitation.
Rick, I think there's a hand up from Rick Bonilla.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah, there is. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
That's okay. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I agree with Donna that I think this does, seeing as how we're really so focused on our core mission, which is to eliminate a further greenhouse gas damaging our climate, causing additional sea level rise, droughts, fires, floods, you name it. And this money could do a lot of electrification, which is a hurdle that can take a long time to get over, or it could get some help with some money like this to get over it. Electrical rates, we don't seem to have that much control over. I mean, rates happen, but opportunities don't always happen. And so I would encourage us to look at and think about that. I know we're not a bank, but I think we can do something of great benefit to our community. So thank you, Donna, for saying that. I concur with that. Thank you.
Okay, we're now moving on to item number 15.
Great, thank you. One thing to note, if it's okay with you guys, we when we published the agenda, we made this an action item because we initially thought we had to make a decision by May 31. But on Friday of last week, that timeline was extended. So we did not need to make a decision until June. So we'd like to make this a discussion item, and then we'll come back to you guys at the June board meeting with an action item.
Great.
All right. So a little bit of background, this voluntary allocation market offer is related to the PCIA, the Power Cost Indifference Adjuster CPUC proceeding. Back in mid-2017, there was a new PCIA rulemaking that was opened at the CPUC. As part of that, the second phase created a working group process to look at a couple of different things, but one of the items to look at was portfolio optimization and cost reduction of the IOUs, PG&E, for example's portfolio of projects that results in the PCIA charges that we see. And then in mid-2021, as part of that proceeding, there was a decision issued that addressed what portfolio optimization activities would look like. So portfolio optimization is the utilities have sort of overinflated RPS portfolios because they've lost, because customers have moved over to us. So trying to think about ways to optimize the use of those portfolios. So through the PCIA proceeding, this VAMO mechanism was adopted, which authorizes the IOUs to allocate a slice of their RPS, their renewable energy project portfolio, to load serving entities such as CCAs. And that gets allocated in proportion to what they're described as a vintaged forecasted annual load share. So vintage has to do with when customers moved from the IOU to the CCA. That determines their PCIA vintage, and then it's based on our load share. So under this VAMO mechanism, we have the option to contract for a long-term allocation of a slice of the PG&E's portfolio, short-term allocation, or decline the allocation. I think, Shannon, you gave me control. All right. So any of those allocations, if we chose to accept them, the term would start January 1, 2023. And the short-term allocation is just 2 years. So it would end in 2024. The long-term allocation would end at the latest end date of all of the PPAs that are in that pool that are applicable to us. So if the longest PPA went out 25 years, that allocation would continue out to the end of that latest PPA. According to the decision, PG&E is required to do this VAMO process, this option to allocate a part of their portfolio to us once per RPS compliance period. And so the chart on the right shows those RPS compliance periods. So right now we're in a compliance period that goes through the end of 2024, which is why that short-term allocation ends then. And then in the next RPS compliance period, PG&E could do another mechanism like this. So we have another option to get a portion of their portfolio. So as I mentioned, we initially thought that we had to make a decision by May 31. This has been changed, and there's been a lot of actually confusion around the timing. We now have to make a decision in early July, and then PG&E will execute contracts by July 29th and get approval from the CPUC by the end of the year. So our plan is to provide an update at the June board meeting and ask for approval to move forward. Okay, so we did want to walk through some of the risks that are associated with accepting an allocation like this from PG&E. And so we'll go into more detail in future slides, but there is risk around the pricing, the volume we would expect, whether and how these resources can help us meet our 24/7 renewable goal, the types of resources, the term length, and the REC classification. So on price risk, the pricing for these contracts is variable. Normally, when we sign a contract for energy, we sign a fixed price. And so we know the price that we're going to pay throughout the term of that contract. The way the CPUC decision was written for this process, we would pay a REC adder. So we'd pay for the brown energy price plus a premium for the renewable. And that would be based on what's called the market price benchmark, which is set each year through the PCIA rulemaking process. So we wouldn't know right now what prices we're signing up for. Each year, we would get a price assigned based on that market price benchmark. Also, index plus contracts are generally less attractive to us than bundled contracts. So when we, for example, procure from the Wright solar project, we pay one price for all of the attributes of that project. In this one, we're just paying a premium for the renewable energy. And that is generally not as attractive to us as the bundled contracts like Wright. The next issue, the next risk we saw was around estimating the volume to accept. So I mentioned that we're allocated a share annually based on our forecasted load, as well as on the vintage of our customers, the PCIA vintage. So because San Mateo County started serving San Mateo County back in 2016 and 17, and Los Banos just this year, they have different PCIA vintages. So different resources would be in the portfolios for each of those locations. Also, it's renewable energy, and it's going to vary based on actual production, same as any of our resources. But there's some sort of additional things that make this a little bit difficult. PG&E has a couple of different ways that they can either add or remove resources from a portfolio. So when we sign a contract, there'll be a list of resources, and during the term of that contract, resources can be removed if their contract with PG&E terminates or expires, or if the resource is no longer in the PCIA portfolio due to a government order, or if it's owned by PG&E but ceases operation. They can also add resources for a couple of different reasons, including from their customer green tariff or DAC program. And we won't necessarily receive prompt notice of this. The way the contract is written, they would tell us as soon as reasonably practicable, but there isn't any description of what that actually means. And then the last risk we saw around third-party sales is that PG&E has the right to sell any or all of the RECs associated with the resources in the portfolio. And there doesn't appear to be any notice requirement associated with this. So we could expect to get our load share of all the resources, and PG&E could have ended up actually selling all of those resources to somebody else, and we would not get them. And we don't get invoices until 4 months after energy generation. So this would make it very difficult for us to plan our portfolio. If we're expecting a certain amount of resources from PG&E and they under deliver, we could be under procured and not meet our own internal goals or our RPS goals. And if they over deliver, we could have spent more money than we needed to meet our requirements. We also don't think that this is going to help us meet our 24/7 goal because PG&E has so much flexibility as far as selling the resources. And there's also no requirements for them to provide us information about the time of generation for these resources. It'll be really difficult to use any of these resources to meet our 24/7 goal. PG&E would be the scheduling coordinator. We wouldn't have any ability to determine when these resources are generated. Also, because we have limited visibility into the actual resource mix we would receive for some of the volume reasons I described earlier, this could increase the greenhouse gas emissions that is reported on our power content label. And it would also make it difficult for us to forecast our greenhouse gas emissions. The project list that PG&E has provided does include biomass and geothermal, both of which have greenhouse gas emissions. And then the last issue is that there's accepting this allocation could result in us receiving unbundled or what are called PCC2 RECs. Under the RPS, there's 3 REC classifications. PCC1 is in California. This is the only thing that we purchase. PCC2 and PCC3 both have negative impacts on the greenhouse gas emissions in our power content label. The PG&E has some resources that they procured prior to this classification system being put in place. These are called PCC0 and are grandfathered in. If these are resold, they lose their grandfathering status and take on the appropriate classification of PCC2 or PCC3. Let's see if I have. So the CPUC issued a proposed decision last week that would say that these RECs maintain their grandfathered status when they're allocated to us. So if that happens, they would continue to be PCC0, but it's still just a proposed decision. We're expecting the CPUC to provide a final decision on that on June 23rd. But it could, if they go in a different direction, it could result in us receiving RECs that would have a negative impact on our power content label. We've seen some other CCAs doing presentations to their boards. Some are planning to accept the allocation to make sure that they are in compliance with their RPS requirements. And particularly, there's some long-term requirements. We are over procured both on our RPS quantity and our long-term requirements. because we're targeting our 100% renewable, and because we had the early execution of Wright and Mustang, which are operating. So at this point, we would not plan to recommend accepting this allocation. But again, today is just a discussion item, and we'll present a formal recommendation at the June board meeting. And I think, yep, that's my last slide. So questions?
Jeff.
Thank you. So this looks like basically the RPS analog of the nuclear and hydro allocations we've been debating for a couple of years. My questions are really more about sort of at the policy level. The goal here is just to give CCAs the opportunity to get some of the benefits back of renewables that got procured on behalf of our customers when they were PG&E customers, because
that's right. So and I don't know if Greg or Doug or Jeremy are on, but I can try to answer this. Under the PCIA, our customers are paying for these renewable resources. And so the intent was to see if there's a way to allocate some of those resources to CCAs to reduce how much our customers are paying and allow us to better meet our RPS requirements. I believe Doug was very involved in this process and advocating for a very different outcome that gave us a lot more opportunity for project-specific allocations. This slice approach is a pretty blunt instrument, and it's not very useful for, I think, our portfolio.
is it useful for other CCAs because they're not being as aggressive with their renewables procurement?
I am not sure. I think some CCAs are running into, there's a lot of issues right now on project delays for interconnection and supply chain reasons. And so I think for some CCAs, they're looking to accept this because they're concerned about those types of delays.
Okay, because I agree with you. This looks completely unattractive to us, and I'm just wondering who this actually looks attractive to.
Yeah.
You don't have to comment on that. It's just the observation is they've done this in a way that just makes it look like it's almost guaranteed not to be useful. You don't have to comment on that.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the regulatory processes for this, so I don't have a lot of.
I'm not. I don't mean to kill the messenger. I'm honestly kind of baffled by this, but I think that's more of a comment than a question, so I apologize. But thank you.
But Siobhan, maybe you could comment on what Jeff implied, which is that this replaces the whole hydro and nuclear allocations that we've discussed the last 2 years. Is that accurate? Or
it would not replace them. It's a similar mechanism, but for different resources.
It's like a parallel.
Yeah, it's parallel.
The way that PG&E had to sort of give us a shot at the crack at their nuclear and hydro, they're doing the same thing for their renewable things that weren't included. But it's just, I mean, it's just done so, I mean, I'll leave it at that.
Bizarre would be the right word.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, I mean, Doug spent over a year in this working group to try to come up with a good solution. And he worked with Southern California Edison and a couple others, and they came up with a good solution, but the commission didn't take it. What we were hoping for was to actually be able to have the full contract assigned to us so that we could schedule that resource and we have control over it. And this way, giving us a slice and telling us months after the generation has occurred how much we got, which is what happens now with the hydro, is a really hard way to run a business. So
it sounds like the commission took the agreement that Doug reached, that we reached with SCE and others, and let PG&E redline it, and then just approved that.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I don't even know if they redlined it. I think they just took their own,
or just rewrote it and gave them something
their
else.
Own thing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, are there any other questions from members of the board? Not seeing any. Is there any public comment on this? I don't see any public comment. Is there any comment from anyone else on the board? This will come back next month in an action item. Okay. I think we're done with this item. Are there any board member reports?
Rick, if I could, I meant to make a comment after Siobhan did her presentation on the Wright storage project. And
Right.
thank you all for your support of that. I just wanted you all to know that Siobhan has the patience of a saint. She was negotiating the storage contract with Clean Era for over 2 years. They were very difficult to deal with, and she hung in there. And we finally got it to you. But I just wanted to thank her for her persistence and her cool-headedness through this whole thing and bringing it to you all. So this is a big deal. It's important for us to have storage with the Wright project because there's so much solar coming out of there. It's really great to be able to store it. And so I just wanted to make sure you all recognize that.
Great.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Thank you, Siobhan. I know from being on the power procurement subcommittee that Siobhan works really hard to both to negotiate these issues, but then to frame them and present them in as understandable a manner as possible. And this last presentation on this VAMO subject, you can see how complicated and difficult this is. So I really appreciate your work, Siobhan.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Is there any other comments or member reports?
I'll agree with Rick on that last point, and I hope Clean Era is not giving you too many nightmares going on from this, Siobhan.
Okay, well, a motion to end the meeting is in order. So it was
I move, we move.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you next month.
Take care, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
And everybody.